Okay, welcome to the fourth hearing of the Committee's inquiry into access restrictions to public lands and waterways. I acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, traditional custodians of the lands on which we are meeting today, pay my respects to elders past, present and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to lands and waters of New South Wales. Also acknowledge and pay my respects to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people joining us today. My name is Mark Benazek. I'm Chair of the Committee. I ask everyone in the room to please turn their mobile phone to silent. Parliamentary privilege applies to witnesses in relation to the evidence they give today. However, it does not apply to what witnesses say outside of the hearing, so I urge witnesses to be careful about making comments to the media or to others after completing their evidence. In addition, the Legislative Council has adopted rules to provide procedural fairness for inquiry participants, so I encourage committee members and witnesses to be mindful of those procedures. So I now welcome and thank each witness for making the time to give evidence. So starting with my first witness on my left, can you please state your name, position, title and swear either an oath or affirmation, please?
My name is Adrian Haroya. I am a member of the Monero Acclimatisation Society. I am a lawyer and I provide advice to the MAS, as I will call it, from time to time. I swear that the evidence now about to be given by me shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
Thank you. And just for the other witnesses, we're not that formal. We don't have to, it's not like court. We don't have to stand. It's okay.
Old habits.
Old habits, yeah. All good. Mr. Wood.
Yep, so Brian Wood. I'm Secretary of the Motorcycle Council of New South Wales and I wish to make an affirmation.
Yep.
So I solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that the evidence now about to be given by me shall be the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Thank you. Mr. Robertson.
Hi, I'm Hugh Robinson. I'm a member of the Trail Bike Riders Subcommittee of the Motorcycle Council of New South Wales. And I swear that the evidence now about to be given by me shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
Thank you. Now starting back with you, Mr. Araya, would you like to make a short opening statement before we go to questions?
Yes, thank you. I thank the committee for the invitation to give evidence this morning. I don't propose to make any opening statement other than to observe that the submission, which I understand the committee has, prepared by Mr. Samuels, encapsulates very clearly and very effectively the problem that the closure of Crown Roads poses for many of the state's anglers and for other members of the state's sporting and rec community who use Crown Roads in the furtherance of their pastime. I commend Mr. Samuel's submission to the committee. We are fortunate that, unlike the case of systems of land holding and land management in other parts of the world, that people in New South Wales who wish to take advantage of the state's open spaces are able, within the limits of the law, needless to say, to take advantage of the opportunities that Crown Roads and Crown Reserves naturally give those people. To that end, the Monero Acclimatisation Society is keen to ensure that Crown lands remain available to the community, free of illegal use, intimidation, and in some unfortunate instances, what the MAS regards as unfortunate threats from a minority of landowners who believe, in many cases without reasonable basis for doing so, that they have an exclusive right to the Crown land. And the substance of the submission prepared by the MAS seeks to give one or two examples of that. And I'm here to help assist in the answering of any questions that the committee may have about that.
Thank you. Mr. Wood or Mr. Robertson?
Yes, I'd like to make an opening statement. So I'd like to thank the committee for this opportunity to appear before you this morning. And in the opening statement, I'd like to bring up 3 items that have come to light since we made our submission back in July last year. The first is the formation or proposed formation of the Great Koala National Park up round Coffs Harbour. This is to be a sort of an overarching national park, and it'll propose to incorporate 44 state forests. And at a meeting that I attended with local riders and National Parks and Wildlife Service back in February, it came to light that many of what I would call logging tracks in those state forests are actually roads. So you do have a legal right to be able to access those roads, some of which have overgrown just due to non-use, but they're kept open by mainly motorbikes using them, and because with a motorbike it's what we call single track, because you only need the width of a bike to be able to get through. So at that meeting, National Parks did indicate that it would be possible to keep some of those tracks open and just classify them as maintained only for recreational use. So that's encouraging to us. Hopefully they'll continue down that path and we'll be able to retain access to those roads that have become overgrown. In addition to that, we're also urging them to look at what are unsanctioned tracks. These are tracks that have been put in by someone, maybe a rider, but you know, they are unsanctioned. We're trying to encourage national parks to assess those particular tracks to see if they can be, I guess, reclassified being unsanctioned to being sanctioned tracks. They've used this process with mountain bike tracks that were in the Royal National Park, because there are quite a number of those there. National Parks assessed those. They closed some of them, but the majority they then took up as being mountain bike tracks. So we're sort of urging them, well, there's an example where you've used that process already. We'd like you to do the same thing. It's also come to light that an organisation called the Blue Sky Trails have produced a manual, I guess you'd call it, about dirt jumps, something that I wasn't previously aware, but these are very steep type ramps that mainly, well, I suppose they're an offshoot of mountain bikes, but they use these to get substantial air. But in some cases, again, these jumps have been put in illegally. So this guidelines or document discusses how to go about assessing those to go from being unsanctioned to being sanctioned tracks, and it then has guidelines and a template as to how you can go about assessing those. So we'll be urging national parks to take up this sort of process if they don't have one already, to be able to assess these unsanctioned tracks. But because there's 44 state forests which will either go over and just be renamed, or they'll be absorbed into an adjacent national park, that each of those will have a plan of management. So for a volunteer organisation like the Motorcycle Council, that's a pretty big ask for us to be able to be monitoring and providing feedback on, you know, where these overgrown tracks are, or where we believe currently unsanctioned tracks should be sanctioned. So I guess it's something that we'll be looking forward to, but I can see that it's going to involve quite a lot of work on behalf of Motorcycle Council to be able to put forward responses to each of those plans of management. Also, the national parks have run a survey regarding the Great Koala National Park as to, you know, what recreational uses people are currently using them for and what they want to continue to use them for in the future. So we've encouraged trail bike riders to make submissions to that survey so they can gauge as to, you know, the interest there is locally and elsewhere to be able to maintain access to areas which will become that Great Koala National Park. So we have a meeting with them week after next on the 14th of July to go and discuss the results of those surveys. So I'll be attending along with other local riders to go to that meeting. Second item I'd like to raise is a local government toolkit for understanding and facilitating trail bike riding in local government areas. This was a document that was launched at a local government meeting in Maitland back in May. It was quite well received and quite a number of inquiries that we need to follow up on. But the toolkit, it does not advocate for unmanaged expansion of trail riding. Rather, it provides local government with structured and risk-aware framework to assess, plan and govern trail bike riding where appropriate. So this one has been produced by Outdoors New South Wales and ACT because the Motorcycle Council is a member of the committee of their trail bike committee. So Motorcycle Council, we've had a fair bit of input into this toolkit. And I'd just add that the CEO of Outdoors New South Wales and ACT appeared before you back in a hearing in December.
Yep.
Because it's outdoors, that was Laurie Modi, but because they cover quite a range of different recreational activities, I think trail riding got a very brief mention in what the evidence that she gave. So, and I guess part of this is also that for local government, encouraging people to come to the area, trail bike riders, brings financial benefit as well. So surveys that we've done with Outdoors shows that trail bike riders and adventure bike riders spend more than the average visitor to an area because of the fact that they can't bring their accommodation, so they've got to looking for accommodation. They also don't carry a great amount of food, so they've got to purchase a lot more. They can't carry lots of fuel, so they've got to go locally and purchase fuel. So there is financial benefit for local governments to do that. Last item I'd like to raise is it's also just come to our attention that a number of local governments have what they call recreational planning 5-year plans. So this is they look at what recreational activities they provide within their local government area, and then what the 5-year plan is to support those. So we'll be following up to encourage local governments to make sure that trail riding is included in those 5-year plans. So in conclusion, again, I'd just like to thank this opportunity to make an opening statement. I hope you've found something that is of interest and something that you can incorporate into your findings. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for clarification, are you happy for that report that you put? You're happy for that to be tabled as part of evidence?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. We'll get the Secretariat to come and grab a copy of that. So the committee's just resolved to have free flow questions so the questions will come from anywhere, including from Mr. Barrett online. I might fire off a few and then I'll throw to my colleagues.
They're not full reports.
Just to you, Mr. Maroya, just go into some of the specific issues around Crown Road reserves and Crown Roads. And you talked about some landholders feeling like they have a greater right to use that land. Where do you think that stems from? Is it a misunderstanding of the law in most cases, or is it a case where I've personally witnessed where some landholders maybe want to take liberty and gain a little bit more land?
In answer to your question, Mr. Chair, I think it's a combination of those two things. In the MAS's submission, Mr. Samuels makes the point that in the particular example that he gives, the landowner in question seems to have been unaware of the what is stipulated in the Enclosed Lands Protection Act. That in essence, leaving aside the various complexities of it, that provides that if a road cuts through enclosed land, one will not be committing a trespass if one is if one is moving along that road. Now that seems like a completely self-evident notion, and I think it's intended by the Act to be completely self-evident. But I think many landowners, particularly in the parts of the world that the MAS deals with, where you have had in the past very large rural properties of many thousands of acres, you have a change, a kind of intergenerational change. The families stop conducting whatever activities, and in that part of the world it's normally grazing of some sort. They decide to subdivide very large parcels of land into many instances much smaller parcels. And I think, without wanting to sound overly cynical about it, many people who buy their small parcel are obviously enthused by the idea of suddenly being a landowner, and the natural human impulse to want to protect and to control what is yours, I think probably comes into play. And I think part of that involves the notion, Mr. Chair, that you mentioned, that when someone gets hold of some land, they try to not only control it, but they try to, for want of a more precise way of putting it, they try to extend their control. I can give you a good example of this, and it's an example which I know of personally. I should also add, I have personal knowledge of the example that Mr. Samuels gives of the obstruction to the use of a Crown Road affecting the river that he talks about in the southeastern part of New South Wales in the MAS's submission. But in the Jindabyne area, there's a very well-known river called the Moonbar River, which is roughly south-southwest of the town. You get to the upper parts of that river off a main road, and the secondary road that you take to basically access that part of the country has a number of smaller crown roads that go off it on either side. If you're travelling towards the river is on the right. The roads that one might take to get down to the river and its creeks are on the right-hand side. For many, many years, there's been a crown road towards the upper part of the river before you cross a creek called Rendezvous Creek, which is a crown road, and I think it has been marked in the past on maps as a fire trail, and I've no reason to suspect that it isn't still used as a fire trail. Sometime in the last half dozen to 10 years, the owner, I infer, of a property on the other side of the river has blocked, and if you go onto Google Earth you can see it, has blocked the entrance to this secondary road by a kind of semicircle of very large granite stones which are impossible to move, and they've been there for at least half a dozen years, as I say. They've actually set into the earth, so even if you were Hercules you couldn't go there and roll them away. That sort of thing causes a real problem, because it doesn't just cause an inconvenience to anglers, walkers, motorcycle riders, anyone of that sort, but we have always thought that it causes a real impediment to the fire service. And that sort of thing, in our view, cannot be allowed to continue, because it just causes an entire nuisance to the public from just about every point of view. That sort of action continues in that part of the world. I understand that local branch members of the MAS and other members of the Jindabyne area have tried to suggest to the landowner or landowners in question that this is not really the most sensible thing or the most community-spirited thing to do, but they have met, or those queries have met with absolutely no response, and these enormous stones are still there. So it's a problem which I surmise is fairly widespread, and it causes all sorts of, I think, fundamental issues.
Okay.
Perhaps if I could add to that.
Yeah, sure.
Because our members have issues with what's perhaps commonly referred to as paper roads.
Yeah.
These are roads that appear on a map but don't actually physically exist. And again, landowners will try and block that off. But as a road reserve, you can legally transverse that as a road. Even other roads where it's giving access to a property, the landowners will put signs up saying private property, no access. But it is legally a road, so you can still use it. So, there is confusion about, well, unless you actually know some background about what the status of the part of the road that you're wishing to traverse, you can be bullied out of using it.
I would second, for my part, the comments that have just been made. They apply equally to the MAS and many other organisations of the same character.
And do you think, just back to you, Mr. Morrow, the submission talks about this, for most people, a largely unknown rule around how anglers or anyone that wants to access the river can access it off a Crown Road Reserve and then actually traverse along the river as long as they remain in a certain position along the riverbed. Do you think that law is, I guess, well articulated or well promoted or enough to landholders? I know that I've come across a lot of disputes that arise from, I guess, a seemingly not understanding that rule exists. Do we need to do more to educate landholders around that rule?
For my part, Mr. Chair, I certainly think so. I think probably from a point of view of parliamentary drafting, the way the law is spelt out in the various acts is clear enough. But I think there's always a lot lost between what any act of Parliament says and what an ordinary layperson is going to understand what that statute actually means for them. And I think that given the increasing importance of all sorts of things that go on land which is owned, which is vested in the Crown, I think it would be a very important thing for the committee to consider in terms of trying to better educate landowners and other users of land precisely where one group's rights start and end and where that other group's rights start and end. And I dare say that there are many small landowners in all sorts of parts of the state who don't have a particularly good understanding, for example, of what a travelling stock reserve means. And I'll add, for people who are involved in organisations like the MAS or people who are, I dare say, involved in Mr. Wood's group, a travelling stock reserve is a very important thing because you can go down there, you can rest, you can fish, you can sit there, you can just be there. Obviously, you can't do things which the law says you can't do there, but there are many small landowners, I think, who think that because a TSR, as they're normally called, is adjacent or, next door to their land, they think that somehow, because it's not actively being used by someone else, they may in many instances just consider that as part of their land. So it is a problem, I think, also for the reasons that have been put in the MAS's submission. It's a problem that really centres around a lack of understanding of where rights start and where rights end.
And just one final question to you, Mr. Morrow, around the specific example Mr. Samuels gives around the McLaughlin River issue. Do you think that remains unresolved because you've got two government agencies playing a bit of a game of go ask your mother, go ask your father, or is it just a reluctance to really push landholders to adhere to essentially the law?
I think, Mr. Chair, it's a combination of all of those things. I think Mr. Samuels in the submission has put his views and the MAS's views very fairly, and he lands on the question or the surmisal of, well, did the Rural Lands Officer really understand what the import of the Enclosed Lands Act is? Now that's one reason. What one might also infer that the landowner didn't understand it either. And it's not. I don't think it's possible to disentangle fault, and I use that word in a neutral sense, but I think it all comes down to this probably fundamental question of a lack of understanding and a lack of awareness as to where all of these various obligations and rights in fact join.
And just one final question for me before I pass my colleague, Mr. Wood, Mr. Robertson. In your submission, you've called for more designated riding opportunities. What does that look like to you? Is that new areas? Is it reopening existing tracks? Better management of what's already available?
I think all of those, because of changes with areas of state forests going over to national parks. We're gradually losing more and more area, particularly areas that are close to Sydney. So it's pushing people sort of further and further out. Something like the Gardens of Stone, State Conservation Area, when that was being proposed, we put forward that there are about 300 kilometres of single track within that area. We were hoping that we would be able to retain access to some of it, but the outcome has been is that we've been closed off to all of it.
Yeah. There was a lot of broken promises around, increased access or maintained access with that Garden of Stone National Park.
So I think had we known at that time what we know now, then we would have pushed more that you need to go through an assessment process as to whether these tracks are sustainable or not.
Yeah.
But many of the tracks are sustainable because the guidelines from the US about how you can set up a sustainable motorbike type track is very similar to those for mountain bike tracks. A lot of it has to do with the management of water, making sure that there's not a big build-up of water that it causes washaways, that you control the slope that you have. You have slopes going backwards so that the water has a chance to run off before it gets to any sort of large volume. So, it is accessible. And if they can build sustainable mountain bike tracks, then the experience from the US is that you can do the same with motorbike tracks.
Thank you.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So the problem too is like with areas being progressively closed off, it creates congestion between groups and creates friction. And this just makes the matter worse. And then everyone talks about exclusion instead of negotiation and understanding all the stakeholders. So by preserving what we have but also opening up new areas allows groups to separate their activities so each group, achieves the values that they want to achieve, and we see no reason why this can't be done. And even when I talk to walkers and hikers and so forth, they generally agree with that approach as well, that they don't mind us doing what we do, but they also want to do what they want to do. So allowing separation would be a good thing by having more areas.
Yeah. Thank you. Ms. Higginson or Ms. Barrett?
I just was going to ask one question if I could. Just in relation to paper roads or, these roads, crown roads, do you accept, or is there a case that not all paper roads or crown roads are viable throughways for public access, that there is a case perhaps that Crown lands ought to consolidate and really identify, which are the best, my understanding at this point is some Crown paper roads don't have necessarily, like they may be on a map, but they don't really go anywhere and they end somewhere. And they probably, and I think it has happened, can be subsumed into private lots, supposedly. Is that something that you would be supportive of in terms of identifying which ones we should be focused on and which ones?
Entirely.
Right.
Entirely, because the point that you make is, in my view, entirely valid. Some paper roads aren't viable either from a physical point of view or from a kind of purposive point of view, and that they don't actually bring you anywhere. What the MAS would like to see the committee give some consideration to is where there is a paper road that is viable or could in some way be viable, but where in particular it's linked to access to an important waterway of any sort, that consideration be given to alerting organisations like the MAS to the potential closure of that road or the proposed alteration of the state of affairs that the road currently has, so that their views, or rather so that the MAS's views can be made known, because it might well end up being something which has importance to anglers, walkers and other users.
So is it your understanding at this point in time, so if a paper road does access a waterway, but it might be controversial at the access point, because, as you say, subdivision, private land, landholders have built their houses on the road or nearby or something like that. Is it the current practice that if that road was then being offered to a private landholder for purchase, there would be no knowledge of that other than the private landholder, or what is the current knowledge?
I'm not aware, Ms Higginson, about the minutiae of the practice. I think that the proposed alteration or the proposed change in the state of affairs is publicly notified, but I think that I'm not going to use the word transparency, but I think that there could be a little more clarity afforded to whatever stakeholders might be involved. And I have to say that in many instances, if there's a paper road of the sort which you have described, and there's not all that far away a crown road, which is, in a sense, is more viable, is more usable, and that leads to the same waterway, I think as a matter of pragmatism and common sense, the closure of the less viable paper road, if I can put it that way, wouldn't really cause as many problems as it might if there were no other immediate and, potentially viable way of getting down to the watercourse.
I see. Thank you. So, sort of, I think you're proposing like a more well-informed, targeted, publicly consulted process.
Precisely, yes, Ms Higginson.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I add an example to that?
Yes.
When it was Jalore State Forest, there was a paper road in
Sorry,
there.
which one?
Jalore State Forest down near Mittagong.
Yep.
There was a paper road, which was to give access to several properties, but the terrain was unsuitable for formation of a road unless you did fairly major roadworks. So what had happened over the years was that they just found another track sort of around that section. So, what was established as the way of these landowners getting access to their properties and other people getting access, they were using this, what you could call an unsanctioned track. So that had been used for many years. Became an issue when it was taken over by, or being managed by national parks, as to, what is the legal status of this unsanctioned track, because you have to legally provide people access to their property. So if they just sort of close this unsanctioned track off, it denied them their legal right to access. So yes, there are cases where there is a paper road, but because the terrain is not really suitable for forming a road, it never happens. So, and I know of other cases where these illegal tracks have been formed around them just to be able to get access.
Thank you.
That's it, Ms. Higgins. Mr. Barrett?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Mr. Wood, possibly starting with you and then others, of course, feel free to jump in. But in other hearings, we've heard of users who themselves are doing the work and maintenance on roads and access and certain areas of Crown lands on a voluntary basis, which has led to suggestions that maybe, say, your group could have access to an area, but the trade-off for that was you are now responsible for managing and upkeeping this section of that area for you and others to use. I just wonder if that's been in discussions or if that's something that your organisation might contemplate.
Yep, certainly been in discussions and something that we're keen about. With the Olney State Forest, there was for many years what was called the Waterways Rally, and it was used within there, but the rally only ran over a weekend. But it was at that state, or still is State Forest. One of the officers there was suggesting that we could get a special permit to be able to use certain tracks, and part of that arrangement was that a local group would be responsible for the maintenance of those tracks. So that's something that we're keen to take on board. Unfortunately, the Forestry Corp partnership officer, she was quite keen on it, but then she left, and her replacement, I guess, got to allow time for him to settle in, but we've not been able to engage to that same sort of level as to how do we actually, because there'd be a whole process about getting this special permit, but something that we're keen to go through. There might be other areas where we can do that, but yes, certainly keen. Queensland, there are a couple of areas where, again, they have put tracks in, and the local group is responsible for the maintenance of those. So there are examples in Queensland where that has occurred.
And is that, sorry if anyone wants to jump in, feel free, but is that to maintain it to a level that is suitable just for motorbikes or a more accessible level?
No, these would be motorcycle tracks only. This is what we refer to as being single track, because it's only the one track, just wide enough for a motorcycle to get through, and maintained to a standard which is accessible to a motorcycle, but really wouldn't be accessible to other vehicles as well. But would you then be happy to
share that area with someone else who is doing similar work in another area, which meant you could then access that area as well, be that a mountain bike track or something like that?
Yes. Where we could see it is that because you've got to be able to have, if you're going to have it, you've got to have a decent length of area to ride to make it a usable sort of thing. So some of these under special permits, they might be single track linking up between other roads, which might be commonly referred to as fire roads. They might be used for something else, but motorcyclists just be responsible for that sort of section, which is the single track. But it's set up so you've got a bit of a loop to be able to make a decent ride out of it, and only a portion of that would be single track itself. And they have got single track in some national park in Queensland, and it's actually labelled as motorcycle only. So there are other tracks where you sort of make a loop, but you can just go on those motorcycle only ones. But they're not suitable for four-wheel drive or other vehicles.
Just to add to that, our requirements as a trail rider / single track rider is different to other groups, and I ride motorbikes and I ride mountain bikes as well, and they are different criteria. And back to my previous comment earlier, is we're trying to avoid congestion, and so that each group achieves the values that they want to achieve. So I'll just be somewhat concerned about trying to join too many groups together, because it compromises everyone's values and also creates potential safety risks. So, it's better to have some separation for everyone's benefit.
Yeah, one of the reasons we're keen on single track is that, yes, on a fire trail, speeds are higher, and the likelihood of meeting a vehicle coming the other way is much greater, and if you have a head-on with a four-wheel drive, well, the outcome's not going to be pretty. Whereas on single track, speeds are much lower. Some single track, the registered average speed is only 20 kilometres an hour, because they're more technical. So they're more of a ride than just get onto a track and open the throttle and see how fast you can go. It is a more technical one, and there's actually a project in Victoria where they are developing some single track, and the funding is coming from the motorcycle safety levy in Victoria, because it's been recognised that encouraging riders to go on fire trails where they've got this problem of meeting vehicles coming the other way is not really the best from a safety point of view. Better to separate the bikes and other vehicles.
Just if there's nothing else, Chair, just one quick question for my knowledge, Mr. Wood. The bikes you're riding on these national parks, are they required to be registered to a road standard?
Yes, because it's public land, you've got to be, you have to be licensed, and you have to be appropriately, the bike's got to be registered. So yes, we have, in conjunction with Outdoors New South Wales, put out brochures about no licence, no rego, no ride. So yes, because it's public land, you have to have those requirements.
Thank you.
Ms. Merton?
Thank you. Thank you to each of you for your contribution. If I could start maybe with Mr. Wood or Mr. Robinson, just from the motorcycle perspective, just checking what are the regional economic impacts of lost trail access given the rider spending and tourism contributions?
What in terms of actual dollar values?
Dollar
or-
values.
Yeah. Ryan, you probably have a better understanding.
While we've done estimates as to what the overall activity brings to the economy, we've not looked at what the effect has been on the closure of particular areas. As I say, it usually just pushes out further out and into areas that Hugh has mentioned. They end up then being sort of loved to death because it's just too many people. My view is that if you've got a problem, better to try and resolve it where it is, rather than just push the problem onto another area or push it onto to someone else to have to try and deal with. But no, an estimate of what the financial disadvantage has been because of those closed areas. No, we haven't done an estimate on that.
But to give you maybe probably a separate example, I also go for adventure bike rides, and sometimes that's on an organised tour. So in some cases there's 200 of us, when we may travel for a week, and we would at least spend $200 per day per person. And there's multiple adventure rides that occur during the year in various areas of the state. So when you add all that up, adds to a reasonable amount. Plus all the businesses that support directly motorcycle riders in terms of motorcycle shops and all the rest of it needs to be added into the equation.
Yep. And many of those rides are out to remote areas.
Yep.
So they're stopping at very small towns where 200 people turning up looking for accommodation and be fed and everything else. That's can be a major source of income for what is a otherwise very small town.
No, thank you. And just for a further question, how do restrictions affect health, well-being and social participation of your members, particularly in rural communities?
Well, I guess the more restrictions are, the less the activity is. So, yes, we've identified that trail and adventure riding does have a lot of health benefits, not just physically, but also mentally. I was surprised during COVID how many people rang me up saying, can they go for a ride on their bike? Because they were just basically going stir crazy, stuck between four walls. So, yes, and riders sort of see that to be able to get into the outdoors, and it is generally recognised that yes, getting out into the outdoors one way or another does have health benefits.
Just to add to that, so I ride with my son, and trail riding is one of those pursuits where you're out in nature. You need to be resilient, you need to be self-reliant, you need to learn to prepare, and these are skills that I've taught my son. So it's a great opportunity for a father-son or a father-daughter or a whole family relationship to go out there and do these activities and teach them life skills which otherwise these days are sorely missed. So it's a great opportunity for people to improve themselves, and the old adage of, idle hands are the hands of the devil. If you don't provide these opportunities for people to go and do these activities, what are people going to do?
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, but that raises, in Western Australia, some of the local governments, they have ride areas, but they're for family groups. So I think children down to the age of 9 can ride there with their parents. But because of the fact, you can't get a licence until you're 17. So that provides an opportunity for those younger children to be able to ride in a controlled environment along with their parents.
In terms of availability in New South Wales for such an arrangement there, are we able to do that with minors here?
No. If it's a park, which is a private sort of property, yes, they can do that. Stockton Beach is the only recreational vehicle area in New South Wales, so there is legislation for the formation of those recreational areas. And when Stockton Beach was established, the intention was that there'd be a number of these around the state, so that people could go riding in a family group. But it's never eventuated. But that legislation is there. If only we could trigger it and get more areas to go riding.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. That takes us to our time. I don't believe you took any questions on notice, but if you have, the committee secretariat will be in touch, and we may have some supplementary questions for you. But once again, thank you for your time and your evidence. Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, we now welcome our next witness. So can you please state your name, position, title, and just swear either an oath or affirmation, please?
My name's Rick Bickle, and I'm the current Sydney branch president of the Australian Deer Association, and I swear on the evidence given now about me to be given by me shall be the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
Thanks. Rick, do you want to give a short opening statement before we just go to free flow questions?
Yes. Yes, please. Okay. Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Rick Bickle, and I'm the president of the Sydney branch of the Australian Deer Association. I've recently been re-elected for the 3rd consecutive year. I am a husband, a father, and a respected contributor to the commercial construction industry, and played a part in many iconic builds within the city limits, including this very building in 2015 during the heritage works that took place. I've been actively involved in New South Wales hunting community since relocating from Queensland 25 years ago. On behalf of the Association, I'd like to thank the committee for the opportunity to appear today. The Australian Deer Association has represented Australian recreational deer hunters since 1969. For more than 55 years, we've promoted ethical hunting, responsible firearm ownership, conservation and the sustainable management of wild deer populations. Just as importantly, we've worked to ensure that everyday Australians have a fair and equitable access to public land that they collectively own. At the heart of this inquiry is a simple question. Should public land be managed using evidence or ideology? We believe the evidence is clear. Across Australia, recreational hunters have demonstrated that they can safely and responsibly share public land with bushwalkers, campers, anglers, mountain bike riders and other users. Nowhere is this more evident than in Victoria, where recreational hunting has coexisted with other park users in national parks for decades. There is no evidence that licensed recreational deer hunters cannot continue to do so in suitable national parks in New South Wales. Recreational deer hunting is far more than a pastime. It delivers measurable benefits to physical and mental health, strengthens regional communities, provides sustainable wild harvest food, and contributes to the management of expanding deer populations, all at no cost to the government. Our members don't ask for exclusive access, we simply ask for fair access. Access based on science, good management and practical experience, not assumptions or outdated perceptions. Today we hope to demonstrate that expanding access to suitable national parks is not only achievable but sensible, responsible and in the public interest. We thank the committee for its time and welcome your questions.
Okay, thank you. So committee's just resolved to have free flow questions, so questions will come from anywhere, including Mr. Barrett online. So just looking for someone to open up the batting. Mr. Barrett, did you want to go first this time, or?
Look, I don't have a lot, Chair, but just, I guess, to start the conversation, Mr. Bickle, if national parks aren't, and Crown lands aren't set up for deer hunting, so I'm guessing that there's different sort of infrastructure, being your roads and tracks and that sort of stuff, to allow that or to facilitate that. I'm just wondering, where do you think the responsibility for owning, installing and managing this infrastructure financially should sit?
We don't need much infrastructure to get into these national parks. We're happy to drive to a head road and walk in. I've done plenty of hunting up in the Victorian High Country where when they lock the gates, you've got to walk in 8, 10, 12, 15k just to get into the areas where you want to hunt. So it'd be similar to the state forests, not so much because we use the logging roads and that to access, or the public roads, but it'd be similar. We just need to get somewhere near the national park and then we can access and do what we need to do. We don't want to be near the general public. We want to be as far away from them as possible.
That'll probably do me for now, Chair. Just let me formulate something and you might be able to come back to me towards the end.
Yeah, Ms. Merton.
Thank you very much. Just a question. How do access conditions to public land vary between New South Wales and Victoria for hunters?
So for us, we've only got access to state forests. So it's quite a well set up system and it's a very safe system as well. So we have a booking system, so they're only allowed a certain amount of hunters in to the state forest, and that's based on, I believe, a 400 hectare per hunter parameter. Victoria's a little different. You just got to have your game licence. You can pretty much go anywhere you want with that game licence. It might be state forest, might be limited national parks, but in New South Wales, it's very regimented and controlled into how many hunters can go into a public space.
And in terms of how does restricting hunting reduce opportunities for food sourcing and cultural practices?
So my family and many families that I know, we rely heavily on wild venison. It's a very high source of protein. It's readily available, and it's my family love it. And to further restrict that, we've got more hunters coming into the community. There's more. All the state forests are starting to get booked out when you're trying to get in there. So we need more room. We need more access. We need more areas to keep feeding families, especially in times now where everything's tight. Money's tight, and having a free source of protein helps families a lot.
Thank you.
That's it. Sure. Can I just go to your proposed trial of hunting in these? I think you selected 4 or 5 national parks. What drew you to those particular national parks as a proposed trial?
Well, I believe we've proposed that because they link to current state national parks in Victoria. Sambar are a very migratory species, which is our main game species that we have in Victoria, and they're working their way up through the Alpine National Park into Kosciuszko and then further into those southern national parks. The numbers are getting a little out of control, and we'd love to, free of charge, get in there, provide our services, take the meat out as well. So that's why we've targeted those southern state forests, national parks, I believe, and they're not very. There's not too many visitors other than to Kosciuszko, to those other state forests. I've been through those national parks, and I believe we'd benefit the national parks if we're in there controlling the numbers.
Yeah. And would you propose a booking system like the state forests, or would you be proposing a similar situation to the Victoria model where you, as long as you have a licence, you can go?
I like the way the Victorian one is. It gives you a bit more freedom, but I do respect the New South Wales system because it controls how many people are in there. It limits the amount of crossover between hunters and just provides a much more safer opportunity. As you're aware, in the last 21 years we've had hunting in state forests. There has not been one incident revolving hunters and firearms.
Yeah.
Whether it's serious or not so serious.
Yeah. And would you like to keep the reporting part of this, what we have in the state forests, as part of this trial in the national park? So
yes,
like the
definitely.
harvest returns, being able to document how much animals have been taken out.
It shows our transparency. It shows that we're in there and we're controlling the numbers.
Yep. Have you pitched this proposal anywhere else other than this inquiry? Have you been trying to meet with the Environment Minister or anyone from state government to pitch this proposal?
I was part of the DPI's round table a couple of weeks ago in regards to feral pig and deer management, and the discussion was brought up, giving us access into more public land space as well as the private land space as well, working with landowners, working with the government agencies, because we're never going to eradicate these deer. It's silly to think that we can, but for all of us to work together is the common note that we want to put forward. Like, we can't do it on our own. The government agencies can't do it on their own.
Yep.
We want to work together.
Yeah. I know you've spoken obviously about the physical benefit to yourself and to your family providing free protein. Yep. Can you talk about the conservation benefits and the environmental benefits that you've seen when you've been out hunting? What hunting delivers in terms of those conservation benefits to the environment?
Well, we're feet on the ground. We're out there. We know exactly what's in there. We are controlling the numbers, and the reporting system not only just allows in the state forest allows us to tell the agencies what we've taken out of that state forest, but what we've also seen as well. If we see wild dogs or if we see injured natives, we have to put that on our harvest report. So it's another tool. It's very similar to what they have in New Zealand, in the Wapiti Foundation, where I've been over in Fiordland and hunted the Wapiti over there. We have to report on all the blue ducks we see, all the kea, everything. So it's a great tool for other agencies to be able to know what's actually in there.
And I guess outside of that meeting you've had with DPI, what has been the engagement with government agencies around greater stakeholder contribution in terms of hunting and access to public land?
It's been limited, to be honest, but the general consensus after that round table was there's no governing body controlling both sides, the government agencies and the recreational hunters, or even the professional hunters. So I think if we have a board that has members from all parts to be able to allocate services to those areas, I think it'll be beneficial for everyone.
Yeah, sure. Just looking back, Mr. Barrett, have you gathered some thoughts?
Yeah.
Yep.
Kind of. I I just wonder what the association, you mentioned there we're never going to get rid of deer numbers. Do you think we should be trying?
Oh, 100%. But you got to understand these deer and other feral species, they're very elusive, and it's just like I don't like the idea that they want to bring 1080 in. It's very non-discriminative, and if they think that's going to work, I don't think it will. They're everywhere. They're here to stay, unfortunately. So it comes down to management.
Have you seen any areas where numbers have been shot out?
It's not so much shot out. They just move. Like I've been on properties where the culling from the helicopters has been active, and then they seem to move off the property, or they'll shoot a number off the property, and then you go two properties down, and they're all there. They're smart. They're not a silly animal, and they just learn. Once that chopper comes, they'll either go for cover or they'll just move out of those areas.
So when you're talking about needing more space, that's purely because if you're hunting in one area, I can't hunt in that area, so I need somewhere else to go. Not that there's not enough deer there for us to shoot between us.
It's a safety issue, I believe, and the more congested these state forests become, the more prone we are to people doing illegal activities, going poaching. So that's my belief on and why we need more areas. Like it's getting quite popular. In Victoria, there's 52,000 hunters alone that are registered with the GMA, and they've got access to a lot more area than what we do. And I know for a fact when I try to book into a state forest, especially some of the popular ones that do have a lot of deer in them or other species, it's booked out well in advance. So it is a popular pastime, and it's getting more and more popular.
In this hearing and other sort of similar hearings that have touched these topics, we've heard about concerns about other users of these Crown lands, that their safety concerns. Have you got examples of other jurisdictions where this shared use has been managed? Specifically, they've talked about bushwalking and school camps and those sort of activities, how it cannot coexist. Some people have a belief that it cannot coexist with recreational hunting. I wonder if you've got examples of where you've seen that coexist and worked well.
I've hunted a fair bit up in the Blue Mountains, which is in close proximity to Sydney. There's a number of good state forests up there, and where we go hunting, it's a lot more remote to the more accessible areas. I could probably count on my hands the amount of times I've seen a bushwalker while I've been out hunting in a state forest, whether it's the Blue Mountains or it's the ones further down near the border. It's very rare we come across other users of the state forest. We've got to wear blaze orange so they can see us, and we're using high-powered optics so we can see them or we can hear them coming from a long way away. And most of the time, I don't really want to be seen in camo because of the perception that people have of hunters. They think we're just bloodthirsty people out there doing what we're doing. But as soon as I see somebody in a state forest, I'm going the other direction because I know my target species or my quarry aren't going to be anywhere near those guys. So we're happy to coexist, and we have done for a long time in state forests. We've had no issues with the logging and the workers in the forestries. And there's been no injuries or near misses or anything like that, even with those guys that are in there all the time, and we're in those state forests as well. So I think we can coexist and be very safe about it. As firearms owners, we need to walk around on eggshells, and we do the exact same thing when we're out in the bush.
You happy for me to keep going with a couple of others, Chair?
Yeah, go for it.
Can we just talk about seeding of populations, be that real or perceived, where people are moving populations of deer to provide hunting populations? How do we manage that?
It is an issue. I don't think it's as much of an issue these days as what it was, say, 20, 25 years ago, where the populations just weren't all over the state. I do know of cases where people have taken certain species further from their current jurisdiction to provide game for those areas. I don't know of too many people, or have heard of too many cases these days, purely for the fact that the species and the deer are everywhere now. So as I said, 25 years ago, probably there would have been a lot more people moving deer around to provide opportunities on either private or public land, but definitely not so much these days.
Because the damage has been done.
Yeah.
Right, that's probably all from me, Chair. Thank you.
Sure. Just pick up on that. Obviously, 20 or 30 years ago, a lot of the deer that we now see around the countryside, they came from
Deer farms.
deer farms
Yep.
that had failed, and those deer farmers obviously wrongly chose just to
Cut the fences.
And let them go and abandon those businesses. So I guess when we talk about seeding of deer, a lot of the problem has been caused historically from that, rather than people trying to physically catch deer now and throw them in the back of the ute and move them around.
Exactly. They don't transport very well either.
No, they generally don't like being around humans. So can we do? Like, I know a lot obviously about deer, like you do, but can you just maybe educate the rest of the committee just how far deer can travel by themselves? I know there was some speculation about hog deer being found in places in New South Wales. Can you sort of stipulate how far the deer can travel, particularly sambar, as we know, are migratory, and how they use our public lands already as a bit of a highway to migrate?
Exactly right. Sambar are by far probably they travel the most distances. I've been hunting sambar for the last 15, 18 years, where you used to have to drive all the way to Victoria to hunt sambar. I now hunt sambar on the south coast of New South Wales, in the Blue Mountains of Sydney, and I've even shot a sambar hind up in Tamworth. And it was a lone hind. I haven't seen any other sambar up in there, but I do know of other cases. The Hunter Valley's full of sambar now, so they do travel vast distances, and the stags do, especially during certain times of the year, they cover big distances. Red deer are the same, especially during the roar. They've been known to cover 12 to 15k in a night, chasing girls. So we don't really need to move them around. They do their own moving around, and they just follow that Great Dividing Range that come up through the Alpine National Parks into Kosciuszko and then feed out from there.
Sure. And I guess you kind of touched on it already, but we've heard a lot from other recreational users how they don't just see themselves as users of that land, but custodians of the land that they're accessing. Is that how your members see themselves as well, as custodians of that land? When they go there, they want to look after it, they want to leave it in a better place. Can you talk about how your members are, or see themselves in that way?
Well, the bush is everything to us. We give it the utmost respect, even to the point if we do see another hunter, if we've come across a camp area where they've left a bit of rubbish, we'll report it, we'll dob our own in. We want to make sure we look after the bush and everything that's in it, the natives as well, the native species. It means a lot to us as hunters, and I believe we are the conservation and the custodians of the bush, because I believe we spend the most time out there, and it's evident in the Alpine National Park. Hunters are the highest visitors to the national park down there, other than the ski resorts.
Yeah, and just can you give some comparison between Victoria and New South Wales, just in terms of the contribution? I know you've hunted a lot in Victoria, so have I, but like, how do the numbers compare in terms of the deer numbers we're getting out of New South Wales State Forest versus Victoria? Are they similar?
Victoria has a hell of a lot more numbers coming out of their public land space purely for the amount of hunters that they have in there.
Yeah.
And it's just so easily accessible for them. It's a little bit harder for us because of the booking system, where in Victoria, you just got free access once you got that game licence,
Yeah.
and away you go. And they do have those bigger national parks, and they've just opened up 2 more massive ones as well down there. So they've been given the opportunity, and they've done the right thing, and they've proven themselves over the years. I think they contribute over $200 million a year to the budget, just purely on hunting.
Yeah, and look, our economic figures are probably similar, if not a little bit higher. But I guess it's not just national parks that ADA want potential access to. Would you like to see the state forest program expanded as well, to alleviate some of that booking congestion?
Definitely. There's a lot of opportunities, a lot more space out there that's just not getting used. As I said, like, I've been to many state forests other than the forestry workers in there. You don't see anyone out there. And we're happy to spend the money travelling into these remote communities, putting money back into those communities, supporting the local businesses, whether it's the bakery or it's the local fuel station or it's accommodation or it's the pub. We're spending like areas like Willow Tree or Marundi up in the New England area. They rely heavily on hunters throughout the year, and without us up there, those towns wouldn't have too much going on.
Yeah. Can you give an example? Can you give a sense of how much you would spend on a weekend trip or a week trip?
Yep, not a problem. I drive a 200 series Land Cruiser, so it's very heavy on fuel. So I might use anywhere from 150 to 300 litres in a trip if I'm driving down to South Mooragle, and then spending 3 or 4 days in that state forest. That's $300 just in fuel each time. In fuel. I might stay at the pub and have a meal at the pub, so there might be another $50 to $100. Go to the bakery a few times, and so I'd probably, on average, I think I spend anywhere from $500 to $1,000 in a 3 or 4 day hunting trip to these remote areas.
And would you say that spending patterns have changed since things have gotten a bit tighter, or it's still sort of remained reasonably the same? People are still committed to going out regardless.
We'll find the money because that's how much it means to us. It's not only providing meat for the family, but I work in commercial construction, so for me, the bush is my reset. I've been the representative for mental health awareness at my last couple of companies I've worked for, and I purely rely on the bush and the ocean for my respite and my reset. And it means a lot more to me than just a pastime. It's my lifestyle, and it's my everything. So even to the point where my wife, she'll notice that I've been a little bit short with her, and she's like, just go out in the bush. And it's not a matter of having to pull the trigger. I'd love just walking around the bush and taking it all in. It's not that pulling of the trigger that we want. It's just being out and being in touch with nature.
Yeah, I'm sure your wife notices, like my wife does, how you are when you come back.
Spring them a step, ready to go again.
Yeah, a lot less short.
Yeah.
Ms. Mearn, do you have any other questions?
Thank you very much. Just checking, does restricting, the current framework in which you operate in terms of sort of the zoning, the seasonal access and the permit system, is it adequate for managing and balancing access of hunters and other users?
It could probably be expanded to a point where the general public could probably get an idea of how many hunters are in those state forests. I think that may be a good platform for people to pick and choose what state forest or national park they want to go into. Or we could be given cordoned off areas that don't really have much other public interaction, as opposed to like the ski zones or the walking tracks or any of those ones in, let's say, Kosciuszko. I think if we're happy to work together. We don't want exclusivity.
Yeah, thank you. And in your submission, I also note that that the Australian Deer Association urges the committee to make a recommendation to introduce recreational deer hunting to the following national parks: as a first step towards unlocking public land for recreational use. Kosciuszko National Park being one of them.
Yes.
Yeah. What are the other parks that
We've got the Southeast Forest National Park. We've got Imlay National Park, and we've got Billigut.
So currently, what are the access arrangements for deer hunting relevant to those 4 parks?
As I mentioned earlier
Yep.
before, the Samba are migrating, and it's like they're working their way up through the Alpine National Park,
Yep.
which connects to Kosciuszko. It's basically just divided by the border. So you come through Sugarbugan, then you're into Kosciuszko from the Alpine National Park,
Yep.
and that feeds up into those other national parks that are in close proximity to it as well.
So in terms of those 4 parks currently, you don't have access to them,
Not at all.
right?
Yeah. We do have access to a small number of state forests that surround them, and they're very productive. So we do know the deer are in those national parks.
Probably just one final one from me. There's been a recent proposal to create a Great Southern National Park, stretching from the border of Victoria and New South Wales all the way up to Wollongong and as
Yep.
far west as the ACT border. So taking all the Crown land and state forests in that area. What would that do to the management of deer numbers in that southern area, do you think?
If we lock it up, they're going to explode. If the government agencies aren't going to be controlled, there's very thick state forests and national parks all through there. To think that those numbers will just maintain as they are is silly. They're just going to explode. Like the numbers that, like especially some of those state forests like Glenblog and Glen Allen, very popular amongst deer hunters. We take a lot of deer out of those state forests, and they keep coming back. So I couldn't imagine if we did lock up from Wollongong all the way down to the border, the numbers would be astronomical, and it won't take long. It wouldn't take long at all. Plus the implementation, like who's going to manage these? Who's going to manage it all? Like it's going to just be one big bonfire waiting to happen. And if that's all locked up and no one's in there using that land, it's going to be astronomical.
Mr. Buttigieg, do you have any?
No, I'm good.
Yeah. Mr. Barrett, do you have any further questions? Okay. Well, that concludes our time with you.
Thank
Rick.
you, Mark. Thank you, Chair. And thank you,
I
Vinny.
don't think you took any questions on notice, but the committee secretary will be in touch if you have and if we have any supplementaries. But yeah, thank you very much for your time and your work.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, guys.
Cheers. All right, welcome to our next set of witnesses. Just starting with my first witness on my left, can you state your name, position, title, and swear either an oath or affirmation for us, please?
Yes, Robin Van Eiseldijk, Customer and Community Representative for Off-Grid Outfitters. I solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that the evidence now about to be given by me shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you.
Nicholas Finch, a representative of Off-Grid Outfitters as a customer. I swear that the evidence now about to be given by me shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
Thank you.
I'm the Honourable Bob Baldwin, the Independent Chair of the Australian Fishing Trade Association. I swear that today the evidence now about to be given by me shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
My name's Greg Cito. I'm the President of the Australian Fishing Trade Association. I swear that the evidence now about to be given by me shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
Thank you. And staying in that same order, does anyone want to make a short opening statement before we go to questions?
Sure, yes.
Yeah.
Yep, go ahead now.
Yeah,
Yep.
please.
All right. So thank you for the opportunity to appear today and for your time. My name is Robin Van Eiseldijk, and I'm here as a customer and community representative on behalf of Ryan Goodixon, owner of Off-Grid Outfitters, a premium caravan and campervan dealership located in southwest Sydney employing 14 staff. I'm also the owner of Sutter's Powersports, a multi-franchise motorcycle and powersports dealership located in Western Sydney, selling motorcycles, personal watercraft and side-by-side off-road vehicles, employing 16 staff. Before I was ever connected to this business, I was, and still am, someone who lives for the great outdoors. My life includes four-wheel driving, camping, personal watercraft riding, hiking, motorcycling, hunting and caravanning. If it gets me exploring our great country, I am there. That's actually why I ended up in this industry in the first place. I had the opportunity to combine my professional skills with my key passion and values. When you spend your weekends exploring tracks, trails and waterways across this state, you start to understand something most people never think about. None of it happens without access. Not the four-wheel drive trip, not the ride, not the day on the water. And frankly, not the business either. Off-Grid Outfitters and Sutter's Powersports exist because people want to explore and use public land and waterways. When that access shrinks, it doesn't just affect a hobby. It affects a livelihood, a community, and a way of life that a lot of everyday people rely on for their well-being. I also want to be upfront about something I feel strongly about: accountability. I believe every individual who uses public land and waterways has a responsibility to do so respectfully, to look after the environment, respect other users, and follow reasonable rules. That's not in question for me. But accountability has to run in both directions. If we're asking the public to be responsible, then the agencies making decisions about access need to be transparent about how and why those decisions are made. Right now, too many restrictions feel like they're handed down rather than worked through, and that erodes trust. I think real, practical solutions only come when government agencies, businesses, and community users are all sitting at the same table with the same information, held to the same standard of accountability. That's the perspective I bring to this committee today, not as a lobbyist, but as someone who has felt firsthand what it means when a track gets closed, a waterway gets restricted, or a permit process becomes so complicated that ordinary people simply give up and stay home. I'm here because I believe access to public land and water isn't a privilege for a few. It's part of what makes this state worth living in, and getting it right means both sides showing up accountable, ready to find out-of-the-box solutions, problem solve, and commit to a future where outdoor lifestyles are preserved. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Baldwin?
Thank you, Chair and honourable members of the committee. We thank you for the opportunity to appear today. My name is the Honourable Bob Baldwin and I appear as the Independent Chair of the Australian Fishing Trade Association. Alongside me is our President, Greg Cito from Daiwa. AFTA is the national peak body that represents the national recreational fishing industry, from manufacturers and wholesalers through to retailers and charter operators. And through that network, we are connected to the millions of Australians who participate in recreational fishing. Recreational fishing is not a niche activity. It's a mainstream Australian pastime. In New South Wales alone, around 1 million people fish each year. They generate 10 million fishing days annually, and they contribute over $4 billion to the economy in New South Wales and nearly 34,000 full-time equivalent jobs. Importantly, almost half of that economic activity occurs in regional New South Wales, where small businesses and communities are directly dependent on participation in fishing. The central issue we want to raise today is how access is actually being defined. From AFTA's perspective, this position is very clear. Access must mean the ability to fish, not simply the ability to be present near water. If the waterways are to be open only to non-extractive activities, then for recreational fishing community, that is not access, it's a restriction. We're also seeing an increasing pressure on practical access, not just regulatory access. The cumulative impacts of loss of shore access, vehicle restrictions, reducing boat launching infrastructure, limited safe entry points, and inadequate disability access is steadily reducing participation, particularly in regional areas. This is rarely caused by a single decision, but as a series of small restrictions that collectively have a large impact. There is also an important human dimension that must not be overlooked. Recreational fishing delivers significant mental health and wellbeing benefits. Research, supported by the Fisheries Research and Development Corporation, has shown that fishing contributes to reduced stress, improved mental health, and stronger family and social connection. As identified in the Australian research, participants indicated that there were several social, psychological, and mental health and wellbeing benefits, with particular emphasis on the relaxation and stress relief. In a modern policy context, that positions recreational fishing as a practical, low-cost, preventative health activity, particularly valuable in regional communities. Mr. Chair, in closing, this inquiry presents an important opportunity. It's an opportunity to reinforce that access must be meaningful, participation must be maintained, and decisions must recognise both the economic and social impacts. Because when access is reduced, the consequences are not theoretical, they are felt directly by small businesses, regional towns, and everyday Australians who simply want to go fishing. Mr. Chair, AFTA looks forward to working constructively with the committee, and I thank you and your members for your consideration.
Thank you. So the committee's just resolved to have free flow questions. So questions will come from any of us here, including Mr. Barrett online. I might throw to Ms. Merton first, if you want to open the batting this time.
Thank you very much, and to all of you for being here. It means a lot to us. If I could maybe just touch on some of the comments in the opening remarks. The Honourable Bob Baldwin, you spoke about the economic sort of activity and return with fishing. Wondering if you might be able to outline that a little bit more for us.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Merton. The economic numbers that we quote are from a study published as the National Recreational Fishing Survey. It was funded by the Australian Government, conducted and delivered by the Fisheries Research Development Corporation, ABARES and the University of Canada. It is the most authoritative data set in Australia to rely upon when making decisions. However, I must point out that data was collected in 2015-16 and published in 19. So that data is a decade old. We have seen growth, phenomenal growth, and I'll ask my president here to reflect on that as a person who directly trades in fishing equipment with COVID, etc. But the reality is participation drives economic activity. When access fails, participation falls, and the economic impact flows on immediately. Not down the track, immediately. Mr. Cito, do you want to comment on the effects of COVID?
If I could just add, the data being 6 years old at least, as an industry we saw what we would have called a greater than or equal to 20% increase in participation as a direct result of COVID. Fishing was one of the activities that was still accessible during the COVID period, and as a result of that, in the last period of time, particularly amongst youth, we've seen a real spike in participation.
Thank you.
So, I just want to add one thing on that youth participation. A lot of that has been driven by the state government of New South Wales, various governments, but the state governments. We are now in phase 6 of our school-based Let's Go Fishing program, which is funded by grants from the licence fees of recreational fishers, driven by AFTA in conjunction with the Marine Teachers Association as an elective subject for senior schools. There are professionally produced, educationally focused videos available for young people. In addition to that, this current state government has introduced the Young Fishers program, which is putting resources into schools to encourage participation, to educate young people. And that is a value plus for our industry.
Yeah, thank you very much. And if I could maybe just direct this next question to your colleague, Ms. Van
Ijsseldijk.
Van Ijsseldijk, thank you. Very good. Thank you. In your opening remarks, you spoke about sitting at the same table in terms of sort of consultation and agreement. I'm just wondering what has your experience been in that sort of that stakeholder government engagement piece?
So I think Nick would be best to answer this because he has direct experience from particular case studies previously.
That's right. I was trying to work with National Parks, Crown Lands and local council at Hawkesbury. We were working on a committee system where we could step in, take over the trails to get them back up to a reasonably, an acceptable sort of standard of, condition, and then maintain them. With the theory behind it being driving more people to the area, good quality trails, family days out. It's an economic, bonus basically for the area. National parks were very negative. They were straight to the point. I have put it here. We don't want four-wheel drivers out there. Direct quote.
Right.
Crown Lands, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. They set up meetings straight away. We had meetings with them. They gave us a lot of information, rundown on the situation, what the story was with that particular area. And council were the same. Council were very positive on wanting it to happen, but knew that it was up to the local community groups to make it happen through Crown Lands, and they would happily step in and involve themselves where they could. We also had a lot of local businesses that were just verbal conversations to start with to work out whether or not they had an interest in it or if it was a concern for them. And, I think we hit about 30 businesses and there wasn't a single one that was negative toward the concept. But yes, the engagement with the different parties was mixed.
Thank you. That's important to note. Maybe if I could, the Honourable Bob Baldwin, if I could ask, just in terms of access arrangements, and we've heard earlier about Crown land access. Just wondering what your experience might be in that space.
If I can defer to my President, Greg Cito.
I can give you one current example, and I think a lot of the discussion has been around access in regional areas. For recreational fishing, this also applies to coastal as well. There's a current situation in Mona Vale in the Bongan Bay area. There's a local swim group who've put forward a submission to maintain access for swimmers and paddleboarders, surfers, for diving, and they cite community and physical, mental well-being as part of their submission, but they specifically call out the prevention of fishing and spearfishing. And I refer back to, I guess, Mr. Baldwin's previous comments that for recreational fishing, access is only access if we have the ability to fish in those areas.
That's an important part, and I'm just thinking, Mr. Finch, that's sort of a bit of a similar, I guess, experience with you in terms of the no access and the view formed or put to you by national parks?
Yeah, basically, it's a very clear one. They don't want you out there.
Yeah.
And yeah, basically we need the access, and we need it for the same reasons. There's no difference between the reasons why four-wheel drivers want access to the bushland to why fishers want access to the waterways. It's mental health, it's recreational purposes, it's family time, there's a lot of legitimate reasons, not to mention the economy.
Yeah, no, and I think, but both of you have drawn on the mental health benefits, and we've heard more about that. Was there anything sort of more specific, or any sort of research or findings in that space that you might want to share with us?
Well, if I may contribute to that, the National Recreational Fishing Survey, which was funded by the Australian Government and delivered by FRDC, ABARES and the University of Canberra, confirmed that recreational fishing contributes to personal well-being, social connection and physical activity, all critically important things in our society. In addition, and this is critical, it reports McManus et al. In 2011 found, and I quote, participants indicated that they were several social, physical and mental health well-being benefits, particularly emphasising on relaxation and stress benefits. So while there's always work to do in these things, it's good when you've got researchers, published researchers, stating the mental health benefits. And hearing others today in other allied industries all quote the same thing. Getting out in the bush, doing something, provides a stress relief and a mental health benefit. So one might say, well, isn't it good enough just being outdoors and not fishing specifically? That's a fair question, but I would put to you, Chair, and to members of your committee, fishing benefits from general outdoor and nature-based well-being effects, but also adds the unique elements of time spent in blue space, water environments, mindfulness and focus, social interaction and family participation. And research shows that people fish not just to catch fish, but to relax, connect with others and get away from it all. So fishing has a great multiplier effect. Now, my colleague and I are in different opinion here. He prefers to fish on alone for his breakout. I prefer to fish with people as my breakout. So to every individual, it has a different aspect and a different result. But fundamentally, it is the same. Breaking away from what you're doing, participating in something you're passionate about, delivers real mental health benefits. And that benefits not just the individual, but the family, the community and the government, because it saves money for the government.
If I could just add to that, I think on some of the other submissions there was a discussion around the impact on family values as well. As a direct result of the boom in recreational fishing post-COVID, we've seen participation really spike with both the youth and with family, and I think that this reflects upon the social values that we are drawing out of the community. So that's certainly something that needs to be taken into account.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yep, absolutely. Yep, the social connection, the family connection. Yep, thank you.
See, if I might add, I'm sorry to interrupt. We have a great cohesion and interaction with all of the other people that were here that have given evidence, whether it's four-wheel drivers, whether it's people who are paddling on canoes, kayaks, boaters, bushwalkers. A lot of those go fishing as well. So we may be the end, but they are the means to the end to achieve what we want to achieve. So we have a symbiotic relationship. They're part of our multiplier effect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Barrett, do you have some questions?
Yeah, I do. First of all, Mr. Baldwin, it's great to hear you say that fishing is not just about catching fish. That justifies a lot of my fishing trips and weekends.
No, that's well.
The sole objective. I think both groups there have touched on a model that we've spoken about a couple of times in this hearing, and that is that the willingness of organisations and community groups to do the work, to manage the infrastructure, to do the upgrades and maintain them, knowing that that would then be shared by others as well. I just wondered if someone wanted to touch more on that model, maybe with an example of where that has worked well.
Yeah, Nick has a good example.
I do have a good example of that. Look, it's not Australian based, it's international based. It's where am I? Sorry guys, give me 2 seconds just to make sure So the Rubicon Trail is a 22 mile dirt road in El Dorado County, California. That one 22 mile road contributes $57.4 million annually to the local economy. That trail has been closed previously, and committees were formed. So it's called the El Dorado Rubicon Trail Committee, and it's formed to manage that trail, keep it open, maintain it, look after it, and take care of it basically. What it contributes to that community is huge. It's completely transformed the area. The amount of not just local tourism or domestic tourism, but international tourism for it's huge. They don't have exact numbers for us on how many people use the trail, but an interesting perspective was in 840 hours of law enforcement time spent on the trail, over 19,000 people and over 7,700 vehicles were present at those times in only 800 hours. So that's the amount of people using that. Now, yes, it's America, bigger numbers, much more extreme, but when we do look into that concept of a local community looking after its local area for its local economy and its people, I don't think you can go past the concept and its ability to work. It's pretty clear.
And I think that it's really important to add to that those individuals that volunteer their time, that want to be part of it, that advocate for it, they are the best advocates because they are the people directly involved, directly affected, directly connected to that world. And when we look at these types of situations and you sit here as two individual business owners that are in this type of industry, for example, including Ryan that we're representing who has a separate business, every single one of us has a connection to that end user, and being end users ourselves, we are the ones that highly empathise and are highly passionate about how do we maximise and do the right things by those areas. Not everyone has the perspective on it, and that's okay. Just as you do in any sort of private enterprise, you find your experts, you find your people that specialise in something, the people that know how to do that job. There are many, many people, many organisations that are completely willing to put their time, effort, raise funds, do whatever it takes to be able to create the longevity in these lifestyles, which is specifically through particular trails, particular waterways, whatever it is. There is a huge commitment from these enterprises and individuals.
If I could elaborate on that, AFTA through its membership and its networks have members who make outstanding contributions to the environment in which we use. And one such is Ozfish. Ozfish do habitat restoration. Yes, they get money from the government, but they also get money from our industry members to be able to do the work they do. And not only do they go in and maintain habitat, they repair and restore habitat, particularly in our freshwater areas. And this is something that governments don't do or couldn't even afford to do, but it's conducted by the volunteers and people in our industry. Many of our members support and fund activities that create beneficial aspects to infrastructure, to safety, community safety when they're fishing, and I think that's critically important. So for us, it's not all about just selling fishing tackle. It's the whole environment of recreational fishing, from the very time the bit of equipment's sold till the time the fish is on the table and all the steps on the way through.
What are the hurdles to this model here in New South Wales? Or
From my perspective, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Sorry, from my perspective, the initial hurdle was national parks. That's all there was to it. Council was on board. Council stepped in. I spoke to them first on the particular trail we were trying to work on, and they were the ones that got me in touch with the right people straight away. I think they saw the benefits of it, or the potential benefits. I think once we hit some roadblocks and whatnot along the way, but they were quite minor. But national parks was a pretty solid one.
One of the major impacts on recreational fishing in New South Wales, indeed across Australia, has been the rapid expanse of marine parks. they are an exclusion zone, waterway exclusion zone for recreational fishers. And the impact of that is phenomenal. Now, I'll give you an example. In Port Stephens, which is where I live, we're waiting for the Great Lakes Hunter Marine Park review to be conducted. But the impact in not being able to fish in some of the good areas, and particularly for pelagic fish that travel through them, is phenomenal. We would encourage the government to get on with the review, which is overdue, and deliver real and meaningful reforms that, one, protect the environment, and we absolutely support sustainability, but also provide access for all.
I think one of the, you talk about the challenges and potentially hurdles here. I think as an industry, and particularly trade industry, whilst they may exist, our focus is on what can we do outside of that anyway, and just to provide a commercial example of the commitment to that custodial viewpoint to commercial competitors. I represent Dyer Australia. Shimano Fishing is arguably the number one fishing brand in the country. We actually work together and have community days where our two businesses come together and do cleanups in the local Sydney area. Not because we see any great commercial gain from it, but because we actually take very seriously that notion of being custodians of the environment that we're using.
And one more, if I can, Chair. In the past, say, 5 years, we've seen the National Park estate expand by hundreds of thousands, millions of hectares. I just wonder, in that same time, and perhaps this is a question for off-grid outfitters in particular, in that same time, in that 5 years, have we seen our access to national parks and other Crown lands increase accordingly?
No.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, no, it's a very, very clear reduction, not an increase at all. Look, I wouldn't have exact numbers or figures to be able to demonstrate them here, but the trail closures and the area closures are only growing. They're just increasing. And I think going back to what you the previous question, I think one of the biggest problems is, one of the hurdles, if we go right back to the root of it, there's the process seems to be difficult to manage, close it off, end of discussion, where it needs to be managed. Who can we engage to do it, and what are the processes, and how do those people engage us to step in even earlier so that it can be managed before it becomes a problem or before there is an issue. We need better processes up front, and they need to be clear and transparent, and the people that are willing to put that time and effort in need to know it's for the right reasons, and it's going to last, and there's a solution behind it, not this is going to be a waste of time, it'll just be closed off and not discussed again.
I think you can summarise it that it does feel that there's not an appetite to be able to put together even a table, to be able to have that discussion and work out what it is to move forward. As people who engage in business, private enterprise, the only thing that the basis of what you do every day is how do you create, how do you form, how do you how do you problem solve, find solutions. Thinking outside the box, taking on resources or finding different ways to use resources. That is who we are as business people and as the people that use these areas. What it feels is that there is no appetite to want to even find the solution, to hard basket it, as you'd like to colloquial say. And I just don't think that there's even a forum given to this to be able to even explore what solutions could be found.
And just to be clear, you'd be happy to look after that area, be the custodians of that area, and allow me as some random to rock up there with my mates next weekend and use that area that you've been looking after?
You'd be proud to do it.
I'd be happy.
You could thrive on it.
The point of that custodial perspective is, and this comes back to the trail stuff a lot, I'm not sure if you get it in the fishing side of things as much, But we do. You get people that aren't going to use the land properly. They're going to do the wrong thing. The two best ways to manage that are, first of all, have people in there that are continually looking after it and managing it based on the broken windows theory of, if one window's broken, fix it straight away. If you leave the window broken, before you know it, all the windows are going to be broken. So we stay on it, we look after it, we maintain it, and that becomes a perpetual thing because it builds for the community, it builds for the people using it, and it grows. The next one is, the more good people using it will filter out the amount of negative people using that same land. And the reality is, anyone that'd be willing to work on a committee and keep something open isn't worried about the guy that's doing the wrong thing or the people that do the wrong thing. They're just going to move on, fix it, maintain it, look after it, stay on top of it, and they'll be able to put more education out there about not doing it. We've got better tools nowadays in social media to be able to use to educate as well as call out, which I think a lot of industries, the forward riding industries, a victim for itself. They haven't done a good enough job at calling out when the wrong thing does happen, and that can be used as well. And we haven't seen that used enough, to be honest.
And also, I'll add, yes, we sit here and represent and are small business owners, independent business owners, but I work with a number of manufacturers that I know would happily put forward, well, they already do put forward education and support, but if you were to bring a case to them and go, we have this cause, we have this ability, I know people that I could ring in this moment, turn around, marketing managers that have the budgets, turn around and go, this is the case, this is the business case, can we support? And they would move heaven and earth to be able to support it because A, they believe it's the right thing, but B, it obviously serves their business as well. So the willingness out there to be able to allow the longevity in the lifestyle and therefore the businesses, it's huge and it's unexplored. And I think there isn't particularly a ceiling to it either.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Mr. Barrett. Can I just go to the trade side of things and then the economic side of things first? I wanted to get a sense of how sensitive your businesses are when there is a proposed restriction or a restriction is realised. How quickly do you feel it in terms of less customers through the door, less expenditure? Maybe start with you, off-grid outfitters, in terms of, for example, the Gardens of Stone National Park. A lot of promises were made around maintaining access for certain recreational groups. None of them have really materialised. How quickly did you, as businesses, start to see, a negative, reaction in terms of your people through the door and purchasing?
So I think the biggest thing that you see is, and this is represented from both Off-Grid and then my business as well, and it's stated in Off-Grid's submission, they talk about customer confusion and hesitation. And for example, Garden of Stones National Park, that's got the reputation of some of the best motorbike riding in the world. That's how my brother affectionately calls that place, essentially, that entire area that we are experiencing restricted access through. At the end of the day, it is the people that come into these businesses are obviously passionate about this. There's a reason why they're walking through the doors of these businesses and looking to buy product that's going to support the lifestyle. The immediate thing that you can see is the realization of, oh, there's another playground being taken away. And you see it. You see it immediately. It's the word on everyone's lips, basically, as they come through the door. And the doubt that is started to go into people's minds about, if I go and buy this motorbike, or I go and buy and put a huge investment into a premium caravan, for example, how much longer can I use it for? Am I going to be able to use it in as many places? And it creates a doubt in a customer's mind about whether or not to place the investment into that particular product or vehicle that they're looking at.
Yeah, we're much the same. We see it immediately. We see a change in the purchasing from the customer, the type of vehicle and the type of work they want carried out. We see a reduction in the service. We see a reduction in the servicing, but we see a bigger reduction in the repair work, which is quite big. And it comes from the combination of one, something disappears, so they can't do that anymore, and two, what's next? What's coming next? Do I bother with that again? Do I do something different? And as a small business, we've been good enough I couldn't give you a figure on it, because what we have had to do for the last 5 years is a non-stop pivot. Non-stop. What's next? What's the next thing I've got to change to? What have I got to look for next to chase a different revenue stream based on this dropping away or that changing? So it's consistency would be a consistency of seeing things open, or if they're meant to be doing something, actually doing it and doing it the way they're meant to be doing it, not the opposite. And that's exactly what we saw at Gardens of Stone. That's been one of the biggest. It hasn't been a killer, but it's definitely been a big hit to the business in that sense. We've seen a huge drop off in what we were doing for those particular customers, and it was a local area to us, basically. Yeah, Sydney to Lithgow. It's a weekend trip, so.
Would the Gardens of Stone be our example of potentially like the Rubicon? Like, would that be a would that be a model?
Can I? I've literally put it in here. New South Wales as a state, it has the potential, especially in the early 90s, before late 90s. This is when a lot of trails started to close. This state and the local Sydney region has the potential, and had the potential, probably still has, to be a global mecca. We could do better than the Rubicon Trail. We could put 30 trails around this entire state, unquestionably. The money and work that could go into those trails from a tourism perspective would be huge. And we used to have it. We had people in the 90s travel to this country from South Africa and from Europe and from the UK to come and do exactly that. Same as the states have now. There is case studies on that Rubicon. There's other ones. There's other ones around we can look into. The environment benefits from it. The environment doesn't benefit from it if it's not looked at holistically. Let's do what we can for the community, for this area, and what we can achieve with it. And if we look at it from that perspective, the environment benefits, the economy benefits, and the people benefit. It's a three-way street in that sense. And yes, Gardens of Stone, number one example. Absolutely, what they have lost, not gained. Instead of increasing, bringing more people in, they've just lost a whole bunch and changed it to another bunch. When we could have gone, increase this bunch, add 3 more. Does that make sense? That
absolutely.
Perspective, it could have gone grow, and been better from an environmental perspective and a social perspective, and it just didn't.
And I also have an example from KDM. So they complete a KDM Adventure Rally every year. And they did I think it was 2016, it was through the Blue Mountains, and it was through that entire area that they had that particular trek, or 2017, I think it was. And they've given us figures that the total, or each event injects approximately 310,000 into the host region through accommodation, fuel, food and supplies. That's not going to be an option in that area again.
No.
That's a huge loss.
Mr. Honourable Bob Baldwin, do you have any comments around like that sensitive?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Please understand, recreational fishing is a destination-based activity. Destination-based activity. People travel to go to a particular destination to fish in regional and coastal areas. If that access is reduced, trips are cancelled or shortened. Overnight stays are reduced and local spending drops. That spending does not transfer elsewhere, and that's important, particularly small and regional communities. So the economic impact is localised, it's immediate, and it's not easily replaced. And the impact is spread across the broad interconnected supply chains, and it includes the tackle retailers and manufacturers, the charter operators and the guides, the accommodation providers, the fuel, the transport and the hospitality business. And in New South Wales, that includes hundreds of independent tackle stores, major retail chains, wholesalers and distributors. But this is not just about fishing. It's about a wide ecosystem of small and regional businesses that are dependent on each other. So access is critical, and access doesn't mean the ability to visit the site, Access means, for us, means the ability to fish the site.
Can I just pick up on, Mr. Sitter, you mentioned the Mona Vale Basin issue, which is obviously an issue I've been pretty passionate about as well. Out of all the user groups in that area, is it true to say that recreational fishermen and spear fishermen, they're the only ones that are essentially paying to play in that space?
Correct.
And are they asking for exclusive access to the Mona Vale Basin?
Recreational fishers?
Yeah.
No, we're not asking for exclusive access whatsoever. Not whatsoever.
Yeah.
So if I could just add to Mr. Baldwin's comments, being a destination activity, I can provide a really kind of relevant example recently this year, and it's probably relevant with the 4x4 and caravanning industry as well. The impact of the fuel crisis in March this year had an immediate impact on retail in the recreational fishing space. We had retailers with their revenue reduced by over 40% in some, particularly in regional and tourist locations in New South Wales. And when you're considering that, the industry is contributing over $4 billion to the economy, that's very significant.
Can I just pick up on something else you said, the Honourable Bob Baldwin? You, in your opening statement, you talked about access in the context of, elderly and disabled fishermen. It's something obviously I've been very passionate about it as well in terms of advocating for. Are there any other states that do it better than us in terms of providing that proper access for elderly and disabled around boat ramps, around wharves, around fishing pontoons? Is there a better model that this state can look towards?
I wouldn't say a better model, because each state is different in what it has. Like Victoria is a smaller state, concentrated fishing. New South Wales is reasonably diverse. Western Australia is just massive.
Yeah.
But what is critical when you look at infrastructure, and it's not just about providing disabled parking or disabled ramps up onto the wharf. It's about having disabled toilets. It's about having fish cleaning stations that are a suitable height for those that are wheelchair bound. It's about having safety measures along the bottom rails of any wharf or jetty that stop kids going over. I mean, safety, reliability, functionality are all critical to producing a good time, and a good time is what people go fishing for. But what is important, and it's been long forgotten, is the encouraging the ability for the disabled in our community to participate, whether it's four-wheel driving, whether it's camping, whether it's fishing, doesn't matter. We need to have them as part of an inclusive program to achieve the same mental health benefits that everybody else does.
And do you, given that just probably combined fishing and boating, just in terms of fees alone, contributes probably upwards of $100 million to state government coffers, is enough going back into providing that functionality and that disabled and elderly access in our fishing platforms, our boat ramps, our wharves, do you think enough's going back?
Well, the one thing that was commendable is the new minister had an investigation and an audit into the way funds were raised and spent.
I asked her to do that.
Yeah, and that's commendable. AFTA's position, and we've put this to the government, AFTA does not agree of any money coming from fishing licence fees being spent in the normal process of what a government should do. So compliance officers that are funded by our fees, we don't believe that is how our fees should be spent. In Victoria, all of their fees are spent on recreational fisher benefits, whether it's restocking programs, additional contributions to additional hatcheries to increase the stocking programs, ramps, whether it's access on ramps. Not what is the core business of government, right? Core business of government is to provide the policing protections. We don't believe that recreational fishing licence money in New South Wales should be spent that way, but by and large in other areas we think it's well spent.
Thank you. Ms. Edinson, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good. Thank
Okay.
you. I apologise for my in and out.
Well,
Sorry.
that pretty much...
Got it.
You got one more, yeah?
Yeah, thank you. If I could, Mr. Finch, just go back to you were just in terms of your interactions with national parks and reported, access restrictions and difficulties there. Just as part of those discussions, I mean, are national parks providing sort of the environmental evidence or the, evidence-backed research or which may be leading to these decisions?
No, not for me in that situation whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
For that one, to make it sort of clear, it was when we got to the crux of it, it was based on the trail we were referring to has been deemed a Cat 1 fire trail, and we know that a portion of it's going to be flattened and turned into a Cat 1 fire trail. And then there's another portion of it that's according to maps, and this was working through with Crown Lands. They didn't have exact maps to show us, but they did their best and they got what they could. There was a portion of it to be flattened and then another portion just to be closed off. And the purpose behind the fire trail, that makes complete sense. Flatten it, turn it into a Cat 1 fire trail, that's for large trucks, so it's a pretty big road. And we have no question with that. That makes complete sense. Does that one need to be that? Can we make it a different one? Is there another trail, which there is on that particular in that spot? There's another trail that could potentially do the same job. That was according to National Parks, wasn't even a possible question. Can we help you? Can we turn the first section of what you need into the Cat 1 fire trail for you? Or if you've done that work, let the committee maintain the maintenance on it so we can maintain access to the rest of the trail and keep it as a recreational trail. It was a 5-minute phone call with National Parks. That's all I was able to get out of them, and that was for the area manager for that Hawkesbury region, and that was the clear response. We do not want camping either. Camping will not be happening. Yeah.
So, and we've heard earlier today, just the absence of consultation and discussion opportunities could be addressed.
It could be addressed, and clarity. I know that the New South Wales and ACT 4-wheel drive council has had consultation with national parks. Clearly, a lot of it was over Gardens of Stone of recent, and the information they got given isn't what's transpired. There's trails that were not meant to be closed that are. I can see reasons as to why you would want to close the trail, but there's also 3 other options around, well, let's not close it, let's keep that open and change the access to here that already exists. And the easy solution is, say we're not doing it, then put the rocks and the boulders in front of it afterwards. And that's when you get the customers and the user groups going, well, we don't know what's happening now. We've got our area that we like to visit, but do we have it tomorrow? Do I worry about doing the work I want to do? Do I, organise a camping trip with my family, or do I not worry? Because when I go there, it might just be closed anyway. So
generating sort of uncertainty, lack of confidence in wanting to pursue 100%. This, and the flow-on effects.
Yeah, that's it.
Yep.
And I think if we could shift that perspective within the national parks from adversarial to how can these people that want to look after the environment, because they love it as much as us, how can we engage them to work with us, to take responsibility for it and take ownership and open it up? I think the knock-on effect would be huge. It would be huge. There's no doubt, especially in New South Wales, because the potential for this state for that particular form of recreation, it goes into all the others. It goes into the caravanning world, the camping world, into the fishing world. It's huge. It could be massive. So it would be. I'm a bit optimistic, probably thinking it, but it's the potential's there if we want to do it.
And we've heard, from earlier hearings today, the willingness to engage and to coexist and working together on this, and the absence of that from national parks.
Yep.
Yeah, give us the opportunity. And there is so many perspectives and stakeholders here right now that realistically want a similar outcome, right? And if there are that many people, and it seems, particularly maybe there's one party that isn't on that, but the reality behind this is collaboration and negotiation comes from, if there is common ground, there's a zone of possible agreement of how to make this work.
Yep.
And that is genuinely there. But the forum needs to be given to the people and in conjunction with the government agencies so that we can actually get those outcomes.
And can I
Just one final. We've also had calls from groups such as yourselves that where access decisions are made on environmental grounds, the research or the science behind these decisions that national parks are taking is made public, is made available.
Absolutely, transparency is critical.
Yeah.
And you, can I just ask one thing? Sorry.
One
Chair,
quickly,
hold on. Yeah. You do accept that, say, national parks, for example, they actually have to come because they have legal obligations under their legislation. So the idea about everybody comes equally with their own objectives and goals, there is this overriding obligation to all negotiations and discussions, and that is New South Wales National Parks and Wildlife Service can't act outside the law, for example, and they've got those legal obligations under the National Parks and Wildlife Act.
So the reality behind this is there are legal obligations, absolutely, but at what point do organisations use something like that rather than working with whatever the bounds of the law are? At what point do they use it as an excuse, a too hard basket? This is we're underfunded, we're under resourced to be able to even work with this. At what point does it become the excuse rather than here's a hurdle, let's work through it, let's find the solution? That's what's important. There is a way forward. It's just it doesn't feel right now that those solutions are, or anyone's open to finding those solutions and to the discussions behind it as well.
And the discussions I've had with the Four Drive New South Wales and ACT committee is those haven't been made clear at all. Because they're let's address them. It should be addressable. The environmental issues on some of this it definitely has on different subjects and different matters, but the legal ones and the issues behind that or how that needs to be dealt with, same story once again. If the issue was laid out in front so we could discuss it openly and come up with clear and concise ways to manage it, let's do that. Let's work out a way. We need. I think it's also lost. It needs to stop being an adversarial perspective between the two, or between these groups and the national parks, based on the fact that we actually need to keep. We don't want the land developed. We want more national park, so it doesn't disappear on us. We want that land. We want that space, but there's no point to us wanting it if you can't access it. What's the point? My next vote will go the way to make sure there's less of it, in a sense. I don't want that adversarial. We don't need that adversarial perspective. We need to be working on transparency. Here it is. What are we going to do?
Mr. Chair, if I may, on behalf of AFTA, I'd like to express an apology for not making a formal submission ahead of the hearings to the committee. I seek leave to table a formal submission for inclusion in your report, a copy of which has now been emailed to the Secretariat.
Yeah, know that we have received it, and thank you for doing that, and thank you, all of you, for that evidence. It's actually been really, really excellent, very impressive. So that concludes our time with you. I don't believe you took any questions on notice, but the Secretary will be in touch if you did, and whether we have any supplementary or follow-up questions. So thank you very much for your time and your work in the industry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now welcome our next witnesses. So starting with you, Mr. Kerr, can you state your full name, position, title, and swear either an oath or affirmation for me, please?
Certainly. Richard Kerr, Vice Commodore of Port Stephens Yacht Club. Affirmation: I solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that the evidence now about to be given by me shall be the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Thank you. Mr. Hodge.
Good morning, Chair. My name is Greg Hodge. I'm here as a private citizen. I swear that the evidence now about to be given by me shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Thank you. And Mrs. Stone?
Mr. Chair, my name is Cheryl Stone. I solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that the evidence now about to be given by me shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you. And did either of you like to make a short opening statement before we go to some free flow questions?
I can, Chair.
Yeah, we'll start with you, and then we'll.
Yeah.
I think Mrs. Stone, you wanted one as well. Yep.
Yes.
Awesome.
Chair and members of the committee, first off, thank you for the opportunity to appear today. At the outset, I would like to acknowledge that responsible management of our public waterways is essential. We support sensible environmental protection, responsible boating and effective regulation. Our concern is not with the objectives of government policy, but how that policy is currently being implemented. In practice, it has become increasingly difficult to establish, replace or even retain recreational moorings in circumstances where good environmental outcomes can still be achieved. Today I would like to make 5 key points. For many families, retirees, sailors and recreational boaters, a private mooring is the only affordable way to own and use a non-trailable boat. As opportunities for moorings decline, boating participation declines. The impacts extend well beyond the individual boat owners to yacht clubs, sailing programs, marine businesses, tourism operators, and especially regional communities. Second, we believe there is considerable scope to improve administration before introducing any further regulation. Many concerns raised by the boating community relate to vacant moorings, the so-called mooring minders, inconsistent administration and lengthy approval processes. These are primarily compliance and management issues. Better enforcement of existing rules and better utilisation of existing moorings could immediately increase access without creating a new single mooring. Third, where additional capacity is required, it should be delivered through a strategic planning approach rather than piecemeal assessment. Properly planned mooring fields supported by localised environmental assessments and possibly appropriate environmental technologies can improve environmental outcomes, reduce impacts on sensitive habitats, improve navigational safety and provide greater certainty for both regulators and boat owners. Fourth, we believe the current approval and management framework has become unnecessarily complex. Many delays appear to arise from overlapping responsibilities between multiple government agencies. Streamlining these processes while maintaining environmental standards would reduce cost, improve certainty and deliver better outcomes for everyone. We acknowledge there may be a requirement for changes to legislation to enable this streamlining. Finally, communication with boating communities can be significantly improved. Many frustrations are simply because people do not understand how the system operates or why decisions are made. Clearer information, better guidance and more proactive engagement would improve compliance, reduce misinformation and strengthen confidence in the regulatory system. We do acknowledge that New South Wales Maritime is about to start a consultation process on moorings. In summary, we are asking government to focus on practical improvements, better management of existing moorings, streamlined approvals, strategic expansion where environmentally appropriate, increased public mooring infrastructure, clearer communication and adequate resourcing of New South Wales Maritime to administer the system effectively. We are suggesting that any change could possibly be run as a pilot in the Port Stephens area as the Port Stephens area does represent a complex environment. This would be supported by the local boating community and the local member, the Honourable Kate Washington. The boating community supports environmental protection. We believe environmental protection and public access are complementary and not competing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs Stone?
Mr Chair, I represent the Women Who Sail Australia group, which has 7,000 members nationwide, and a large majority of those are New South Wales based boat owners, yacht club members, mooring holders and operating in the marine industries. We are really concerned about the recent restrictions imposed by the Department of Primary Industries on acquisition, disposal and modification to moorings. As I understand it, these restrictions and changes of policy, which apply statewide, were developed by DPI in consultation with Service New South Wales Maritime, Marine Parks, Fisheries and Port Stephens and Great Lakes councils. Mooring holders, interested community groups, industry, yacht and boating clubs were never invited to participate in the policy development and have never been provided with any opportunity to comment on any information, draft policies or proposed procedures. The first they became aware of the change of regulations was when mooring holders received letters late in 2024 telling them what the new policy is, not asking for any feedback. Women Who Sail Australia fully supports measures to counteract climate change, but these measures must be balanced with user needs. The research shows that, with some modifications, mooring fields in Port Stephens, for example, could threaten relatively small areas of seagrass beds, especially if the replacement of current block and tackle infrastructure by environmentally friendly moorings is progressed in a timely manner. On that issue, the relevant department in Queensland has had perfectly serviceable, good moorings that are environmentally friendly in place since 2012. There are several hundred of these environmentally friendly moorings already there, following 2 years of research in 2009 to 2011. And it beggars my belief why DPI has apparently expended huge sums of money, starting from scratch, with a research on moorings in Port Stephens, when there are already suitable options available. Currently, a significant percentage of mooring holders who wish to sell their boats cannot do so. In many instances, buyers are not permitted to take over the leases for those moorings, and in many instances, for example in Shoal Bay in Port Stephens, I believe that whole mooring field has been closed. There are now no moorings available in there. Often the mooring has been or is required to be removed, and the space is precluded from any future use as a mooring field. The prohibition on new or replacement moorings and extensive restrictions on new moorings in some areas, as well as restrictions on boat lengths that can use those areas, is resulting in a serious decline in the overall availability of moorings along the coast, with consequent long wait lists and a noticeable downturn in boat sales. Currently, there is nowhere in Port Stephens where a private mooring space is available for lease, and if you look at Sydney Harbour, it's a similar situation. Apart from private moorings, there are very limited options available for vessel storage while a boat owner waits for a mooring. Marina fees are among the highest in Australia along the New South Wales coast. For many, the cost of paying for a marina berth is prohibited. It's around $20,000 a year for a vessel. And for many, the cost of paying for the marina berth is prohibitive. Anchoring the vessel is prohibited for extended periods because it contravenes maritime's regulations. I would like the committee to note that in 2005, the late John Bartlett, who was then the member for Port Stephens, assured the community that the 20% of the park area set aside for sanctuary zones would ensure protection for the environment while enabling continued community access to the waterway. Currently, DPI seems to have decided that that 20% is not good enough, and it is gradually depleting the areas along the, not just in Port Stephens but in other places, and it's really difficult to find a mooring. There are currently 241,000 registered vessels in New South Wales. Many of these would be trailer boats. However, data from the Boating Industry Association shows that registrations for boats over 6 metres increased by 32% between 2019 and 2024. Vessels over 6 metres are more likely to be kept on moorings or in marinas. A recent article dated a year ago in the Financial Review highlighted that demand is outpacing supply for marina berths in most coastal locations of New South Wales. And add to this the expense of keeping a vessel in a marina, it's clear that the availability of private moorings needs to be addressed. Of course, the negative impacts on the issue of current mooring restrictions is not exclusive to Port Stephens. A Women Who Sail Australia member recently sustained serious damage to her yacht in wild weather in the northern New South Wales rivers area, as she was not allowed to move this vessel onto her existing mooring. She was forced to hire a commercial mooring, which failed, resulting in her boat washing up on nearby rocks. The situation is really, really difficult for boat owners and mooring holders at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kerr, do you have anything to add?
Yes, I do. Port Stephens Yacht Club members were involved in the joint submission with the Hunter Regional Interest Group, and Greg's presented the big picture on that. I'd like to highlight a unique local issue to the Port Stephens area, and that's our status as a marine park. That's the Port Stephens and Great Lakes Marine Park. Now, after protracted discussions with maritime people there, they've told me there is a difference in how a mooring is defined within a marine park and outside a marine park, such that outside a marine park, a mooring is exempt from planning permission, does not require a development application to local council. Inside a marine park, it does. And that seems to be the root cause of the biggest limitation on supply of moorings in Port Stephens. When this was introduced, I believe the last mooring movement was in January 2023. So we're talking over 3 years ago since any new moorings were approved. And that's because marine parks, before they do a review of environmental factors, which is now mandatory and accepted, won't do that until the local council has approved a development application, and local council are declining to do that. Now, the maritime officers there inform me that there's 750 or so moorings that are currently deadlocked in that situation, 600 and something that are currently leased. Now, what we're hoping is that that particular administrative deadlock can be resolved such that the normal review of environmental factors can start and release available moorings. We've been told something like 200 moorings that are not in seagrass areas and not otherwise encumbered by environmental limitations would then become available immediately to the boaters of Port Stephens. We have a waiting list of 117 with 200 available spots if only we could clear that administrative blockage. Thank you.
Thank you. So the committee's just agreed to have free flow questions. So questions can come from anywhere. It's not an interrogation. It's just a formal chat. So I might start off with just picking up on your comments there, Mr. Kerr. What are council's reasons for not processing those DA applications? Are they saying that it's not within their remit, That they don't have resources? What's their reasoning for not?
My understanding, which is anecdotal, is they've never had to do this before and they don't have to do it anywhere else. And I think the legislation was introduced or commenced around 2007 after the gazetting of the Marine Park, which is about 2004 or 5, I believe, from memory. So they've said, I think they had an initial look at it and tried to see if there was any value in it, because it will be a money earner for them, but eventually decided not to proceed. And so there's been a deadlock ever since. That would also apply to other marine parks, I assume, like Jarvis Bay. But Port Stephens has by far the most moorings in it.
So
that's my understanding.
Yeah, so let me get it clear in my head. The legislation says the council has to do it.
Yep.
But the council's refusing to do it, essentially.
I'm not sure that the legislation directs them to do it. I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that.
Okay.
In the legislative pathway that councils are in, moorings are exempt from, specifically listed as exempt from planning permission. However, in a marine park, they're not listed at all. They're not even defined in a marine park legislation, which I think is the planning pathway. And so they have been interpreted underneath the heading of structures, and structures are required to have a DA.
Right, okay.
So I believe there's just that absence of wording.
Yeah.
I might add too that there was a summit between representatives from the Department of Planning, Housing and Infrastructure and other involved departments on this subject, and the representative from the Department of Planning indicated they would add wording to the legislation to remove moorings from that requirement, make them exempt. That happened at the end of last year, I believe, and we're still waiting for that. So I believe it has been acknowledged and a plan's in place, but it hasn't happened.
Okay. And just so I can be clear, who are the main agencies that you are dealing with when it comes to moorings? Obviously Maritime is one, but I know DPI, it's seemingly this new policy has emerged from DPI rather than Maritime. Do they have they have any say in the actual processing of the mooring applications?
In a marine park they would, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And there are a number of different activities in mooring administration that trigger the involvement of a marine park. So if something is requested, let's say a boat owner sells a boat and buys another very similar boat, they are being processed because it doesn't trigger the involvement of the marine park. But once the Marine Park Authority becomes involved, such as an owner sells a small boat and wants to put a bigger boat, that's considered a new application, and therefore marine parks are involved. The first thing they'll ask for is a development approval from the council, and that's where it's stopped.
Okay.
I might add, Chair, outside of the marine park, the point of contact for a boat owner to get a mooring is only to New South Wales Maritime. So the application is made to New South Wales Maritime, and we understand that New South Wales Maritime are the persons that develop the review of environmental factors and deal with DPI and anybody else, and so the boat owner only has one point of contact.
But there's still obviously things going on in the background.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. And do you think that perhaps when it comes to moorings in marine parks, the agencies are acting in cross purposes, perhaps?
My view on it is that this is an accidental consequence and was unforeseen, and that it's a relatively easy and quick fix, which would free up viable mooring space very quickly.
Yeah.
I think it was just an unintended consequence of new legislation.
Yeah. And Mrs. Stone, you spoke about this obviously having an impact on people buying new vessels. Has the recent change in boat registration fees had an impact as well in terms of where they went to? Obviously, all the fees went up reasonably significantly, but there was also a greater delineation between vessel sizes. Has that had any material impact on people accessing sailing as a recreation?
I think the overriding issue for many boat owners is access to a safe mooring space in preference to an expensive marina space.
Yeah.
And that's along the whole coast. For example, if you check the availability of moorings in Sydney, the priority wait list is 16, 17, 18, 20 boat owners, which to me seems like they'll never be able to get a mooring. And that doesn't make sense if you want to support the boating industry.
Well, you imagine it would stop people getting into boating, certainly. Like, you know, obviously if you already have a vessel and you need to find a new mooring, it's difficult enough, but it would certainly be a roadblock for any new participants, wouldn't it?
Yes, and the issue then is, if a boat owner wants to sell a boat, the market is much, much smaller because the market can't get a mooring space. So we have all these extra, as you said, all these extra mooring minders, we call them, people who don't want their boats anymore but keep them on a mooring so that they're not accessible, they're not available. And the other issue of concern to me is that the operational staff in maritime are the ones who have to deal with a high level of discontent and anger amongst the boating community because of these complex processes and procedures which have been imposed, it seems to me, by senior officers in DPI, and it's been left to the operational staff to have to deal with all of that mess, for want of a better word, that's been created by the senior staff in DPI.
Mr. Hodge, you were
yes, I
like
can maybe give you some data around your first question. I think, and I can speak from my own boat, which is a 35-foot motor cruiser. Approximately, being the engineer that I am, that boat costs me about $18,000 a year to own, excluding any capital costs.
What does BOAT stand for? Bring out another 1,000?
Yes, break out another 1,000. Yeah. Yes, standing under the shower, ripping up $100 bills. Yes. So the cost of the registration is really one of the small costs. You know, insurance is enormous, cost of maintenance. I've got twin engines and cost of fuel, etc. So that sort of may give you a perspective on the cost of registration. To maybe elaborate on just freeing up the moorings, where my boat is on Lake Macquarie, there are 14 moorings in my bay. There are 2 vacant moorings, one of which has been vacant for 11 years. I don't know how that can happen because that is in direct contramand of the licence agreement. One is a commercial mooring that's never used, and there are 2 mooring-minded boats in my bay. So of the 14 moorings there, potentially there's 5 that could be freed up to use for people who want to put their boat on a mooring.
And just one final question from me: is there an ability to transfer a mooring? So if you have your boat there at a mooring and you want to sell your boat, are you able to transfer them in one go? Are you able to sell the boat and essentially pass on the mooring to the new owner?
No, not technically.
Okay.
The mooring apparatus is owned by you.
Yep.
The licence is from New South Wales Maritime to you for that particular boat.
Okay.
So when you sell your boat, yes, there's a good chance that the new owner could take up and apply, and that may transfer through, but that's really on the goodwill and the relationship with the local boating service officers.
Okay.
The other dilemma with buying a boat normally is that you can't apply for a mooring until you've got the boat. So therefore, I need to buy the boat first, then apply for the mooring. Well, where do I put it?
Yeah.
So that stops me from buying it.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a solution to have some sort of temporary allocation for 3 months or 6 months, and if you don't take it up, that'll lapse or something while you go and shop. So.
Okay. Thank you.
I might
Mr. Chair, you just
contribute
want
to
to add
that one
something?
as well. I've actually been trying to sell a boat on a mooring for 3 years, but and it's a good boat.
There'll be a picture soon.
No interest. Now, the understanding there in the good days was I could sell that boat, and the mooring would then become available. The apparatus itself would stay there, and the next person on the wait list, provided they had an appropriate boat, could go on there. That's then termed a new mooring. So we're not talking about a vacant patch of seabed as new. It's any new leaseholder of that location. So if I sell my boat, it's a new application, and then we go into the black hole, because that triggers the whole process of requiring a review of environmental factors, and before that the DA, and then stop. So my mooring is not in seagrass, and I assume it's not encumbered by anything else, but it would remain in limbo once my boat goes.
Well,
I might also add that we talk a lot about boat owners and access for boat owners to moorings. A lot more people sail than own a boat, and each of those boats would have an average of 4 or 5 people on it when it travels. And I come from a competitive sailing background, so that's, every boat times 4 or 5 people are affected.
thank you. Ms Merton, do you want to?
Thank you very much to each of you for your contribution. Wondering, Mrs Stone, in some of your opening comments there, you spoke about changes to the mooring arrangements being pretty much imposed on people, and the absence of any consultation or participation. Just wondering if you might be able to elaborate on that a little bit more.
The information I have is that it was DPI that got maritime. Let me get the list. It was DPI in consultation with Service New South Wales Maritime, Marine Parks, Fisheries, and Port Stephens and Great Lakes Councils. They are the entities that I understand actually undertook consultation with the senior officers in DPI, and I believe that was the only consultation that happened. There was no ongoing or further consultation with members of the public, mooring holders, boaters, yacht clubs. It just didn't happen. It was just imposed.
And in terms of those changes, how significant are those changes to the industry, particularly to your membership in terms of Women Who Sail Australia?
A number of our members just can't get a mooring. They can't sell a boat because the purchaser can't get a mooring. Yeah. And the money flow within the industry is seriously jeopardised. And it's just really, really difficult for everybody.
Thank you. And just in terms of the restrictions or the changes applying to mooring, how do they compare to other different waterways or
for me?
Yes.
Within a marine park, I believe the only difference is the review of environmental factors, which is triggered when Maritime identify an application as a new application. And there are a number of different versions of that. The only things that are being processed now are when a boat owner sells a boat and replaces it with a boat of the same displacement, I'd suggest, and length. Mm-hmm. So therefore it's a like-for-like transfer, which doesn't trigger the involvement of marine parks. So marine parks is an extra layer on top of everything that Greg mentioned, which is a bit historical as well.
Elsewhere in New South Wales, the Marine Park, if it's not Marine Park, all the interaction is with New South Wales Maritime. And there is still a review of environmental factors required. And one of the suggestions we could make is that maybe rather than doing it on an individual boat-by-boat basis, that could be extended to be taken to a mooring field basis, where a whole mooring field may be reviewed once, and then that covers it for all the boats in that particular field.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Mr. Kerr, I think you spoke earlier, or maybe your colleague, about 750 moorings being in a deadlock arrangement.
I have the exact number if you give me a moment. 1 second. Where did I put it? According to Maritime, when I spoke to them earlier this week, there are 1,397 mooring locations identified in 26 mooring areas in the Port Stephens and Great Lakes National Park, Marine Park. Now, the way they term these things, moorings lost due to restricted access is 708, with 31 more of them in limbo. I'm not sure exactly what limbo means in their terms. Currently licensed to boat owners is 658. So that's, in the overall capacity, that's a loss of 53%. There's a current wait list of 117 with no availability at all. And the last movement for that waiting list was in late February 2023. Now, of the 708 and perhaps 31 in limbo, we know that some of those will be in areas that don't pass the environmental test. In other words, they'll be in seagrass meadows and so on. But we estimate, or they estimate, something like 200 are not in those areas and therefore should be available. We're just hoping the process to identify those moorings can start.
Thank you. And just maybe if you could elaborate a little bit more, when there were a large number of moorings being, I think the term was, lost. In terms of or restrictions or a change.
So these are mooring locations.
Locations, right.
Rather than actual moorings. So that they've all fallen into that area of, they're not accessible because of the administrative blockage.
Right.
The requirement for a DA.
Right. So it's a bit of a bureaucratic government deadlock.
Yes.
That's putting a number on the mooring, but there's no availability or access to this.
That's it.
And we recognise we have a wait list here.
Yes. That's as we see it from the outside, yes.
There used to be a mooring field in Shoal Bay in Port Stephens, quite a large mooring field. It doesn't exist anymore. And the removal of whole mooring fields has been happening along the coast, but it's happened without any consultation or without any explanation as to why or how.
So the absence of sort of the justification for these changes remains sort of unanswered.
Yep.
Yeah. Suggestions that they're environmental grounds, or not hearing any?
Not hearing anything.
That was one of the points that increased communication to the boating community would be very valuable, and it would, to borrow a common term at the moment, maybe turn down the temperature in the boating community.
And in terms of consultation and engagement with the industry on something like this, would you have suggestions as to what framework would work here? I mean,
there are probably channels of communication. Certainly the website has to be a real channel, but also, which may incur some costs, magazines like Afloat, which is a freely distributed magazine. Every marina in New South Wales would get multiple copies of Afloat magazine. That would be a great channel to communicate with the boating community. And similarly through the Boating Industry Association, I'm sure they could put it out to their membership as well. So, just as ideas.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And look, we've heard from earlier hearings today where decisions are made to, reduce access or to pull back access on environmental grounds. We're seeing the absence of the environmental evidence.
Yes.
I mean, would you have a similar, members would like to understand a bit more, produce the evidence?
I'm concerned that Queensland Moreton Bay has had environmentally friendly moorings in place, hundreds of them in place, since 2012. and yet New South Wales made a decision to do a 2-year research process starting from scratch with environmental moorings. Surely it would have saved a lot of money, a lot of time, and it would have made a lot more moorings available if New South Wales had had a look at what Queensland is already doing and doing successfully and safely, rather than mucking around with new research that's already been done.
I think too, boating owners are not scientists, so slabs of scientific evidence is probably not appropriate, but a level of informed discussion would, I think, be valuable. To demonstrate why there are endangered species or endangered seagrasses or whatever as to why this mooring field is being progressively removed.
Thank you.
Probably just two more for me. With the DPI redoing an unnecessary study, have they provided any reasons as to why they're ignoring the Queensland model? Has that been put to them?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
It hasn't been put to them, or you're unaware of a
I'm
response?
unaware of any feedback from DPI as to why they haven't used what's already available and operating safely.
All right. And is Queensland the model that we should look towards in terms of just moorings in general, in terms of how it's well managed? Or are there other jurisdictions where it's less convoluted than New South Wales?
What I do know about the Queensland Moreton Bay area is that it has a lot of similarities with, for example, Port Stephens, and in terms of the seabed and the weather conditions, which can be quite severe. And my conclusion is that if there are similar conditions in Moreton Bay, then surely the moorings will work, the environmentally friendly moorings will work in Port Stephens.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Buddy, did you have any questions? No? And Mr. Barrett's indicated he doesn't have any. Well, thank you very much for your evidence. That concludes our time with you. I don't think you have taken any questions on notice, but if we have any supplementary or additional questions, the Secretariat will be in touch. But thank you very much for your time today and coming down. Thank you. Much appreciated.